because of being in the game, you're a little bit more cynical. You know what goes on behind the scenes. I'd class myself as having a really good football brain. I think what's between my ears, in a footballing sense, is probably more important to me being a player than it was what my feet were. Every fan should experience that. They should have that moment. And the referees used to always give them decisions, I'm telling you now. Oh, it was a penalty. Come on.
Welcome to Football for Breakfast, presented by OSS Security. I'm Jim Johnson. Our guest today grew up in Bootle watching his dad's Sunday League team, still gets 3 football magazines delivered every month, and runs a charity giving football kits to kids' teams. Whilst he needs no introduction, we're giving him one anyway. Jamie Carragher. Stick the kettle on. You're amongst good companions. Jamie Carragher, yes. Sit yourself down.
Okay, boss.
So you've got Greek yogurt and fresh fruit.
Fresh fruit. Blueberries, raspberries, yeah.
You health fiend. I'm reading Roy of the Rovers here from the 24th of June 1989. Here's a question for you. Right. So as you can see, someone's knocked the ref out there. You know, I'm not sure you ever knocked a ref out.
Wasn't Paolo Di Canio, was it?
I'm not sure you've ever knocked a ref out though.
No.
You know, but it says on the front cover of this issue, a ref gets knocked out by the ball and has to leave the field, taking no further part in the match. What happens now?
Jamil comes on, doesn't he?
Well, so in 1989, the answer to that question is, right, one of the linesmen takes over from the referee, and the qualified linesman is called from the crowd.
Jamil.
Jimmy Hill, you're absolutely right, yes.
He didn't get the first time,
I didn't get it.
So Jimmy Hill was doing TV, wasn't he, one time? And he come down and did the line.
Oh, you are Football for Breakfast,
exactly.
Gem. Come on. That's absolutely right, yeah. 1970s sort of really bad pitch.
Yeah,
all of
he
that
comes
stuff.
On, doesn't he? Yeah.
He did, yeah.
The legend, Jimmy Hill.
Yeah, wow. That was when football was football, right?
Exactly.
And what's your earliest football memory?
Early football memory. So playing and watching. Watching would be watching Everton win the FA Cup against Watford in 1984. That's the first game I can remember on TV.
Yeah. Sorry, Elton. I guess that's why they call us the Blues.
Yeah. Playing football, I can just remember my dad asking kids who were a bit older than me, basically to play with them.
Yeah.
In the Brunny on Marsh Lane. So, 5 minutes up the road. And listen, I would have kicked the ball before, but that's my first recollection of actually, I'm playing with other kids rather than just playing in the yard on my own.
Yeah.
Playing with other older kids.
When did you know you were good?
I remember at school, I think I would have been about 6, 7, and the teacher had sort of 2 classes, and the older class were having a proper game, as in like maybe 7v7 or 11v11, whatever it was on this pitch, on a proper football pitch, and we were just on the side with the goalie, and I was all just running around after the ball trying to score.
Yeah.
So he was watching that without really watching us, and I just remember him. I can't remember what I did.
Yeah.
But he just said, "You come on this pitch."
Right.
So I.
You remember how that made you feel? As a child?
I can picture it now. So it's just getting the teacher just moving me onto the other pitch with the other kids.
Do you feel a sense of, and I play football, and my son's an elite footballer, he's in the academy system, and yet I know that he still loves playing for his school, but now, because of his age, he can't really do that anymore, because he gets targeted and all of that stuff. But I know that one of the things that, over that time watching him grow, was watching him have to sort of detach himself from his peer group of mates just kicking the ball around because he was on a different pathway, in the game. I mean, was that how it was for you?
Yeah, a little bit, and I wish that I was probably more part of the current system than the old system, and I know that probably goes against the grain of what a lot of people say.
Yeah.
Because if you make it, you think your path was the right way.
Of course.
It's just, you know, it worked for me. But when I think of playing football as a kid, I like playing with good players and against good players.
Yeah.
I didn't like playing amateur football and winning 8-0.
Yeah.
I mean, I did at the time, you know, you scored a few goals, but really when I look back, and even as a youngster, I used to think, really? Winning a game 7-8-0?
Yeah.
So I preferred schools football to amateur football.
Right.
So schools football for me was not playing for the school, but playing for your district.
Or schoolboys.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that for me was the best level of football because Liverpool didn't have games so much.
Yeah.
So it would be Bootle Boys when I was 9, 10, 11. So that was games where you'd play Liverpool Boys, you play Kirby, you play the Wirral.
Yeah.
So you're playing with good players and you're playing against good players, and games are finishing. You know, if you're a lot better than the opposition, you're in 4-0.
Yeah.
You might draw 1-1 with Liverpool. You know, it's a proper game of football. And then playing for Sefton Boys when I was under 13s, under 14s, before I went to the national school. So I was going to Liverpool once a week.
Yeah.
That was the only whole day. I'd only really, we'd have the odd game.
Yeah.
Every few weeks or every few months, but in the main.
But in those days, it was 14 was the age, wasn't it, when it became more serious? Is that right?
Yeah, that's when you become a schoolboy, and I think you then went to Liverpool twice a week.
Yeah.
I never went through that because I went to the national school at Lilleshall.
Yeah.
So that's when it does become probably serious, and you're trying to get a full-time contract when you leave school. So I think they start playing games at schoolboy level.
So the schoolboy system, like that, if you like, the schoolboy select system, where you're playing for your region or your district, that actually, in those days, was a kind of a real benchmark, wasn't it? It was like that was kind of where you. Who did you play with?
So I wouldn't say there's no one you'd remember, but Bootle's not the biggest of areas. Obviously, Liverpool schoolboys were there. They were the team. Played at Penny Lane.
Yeah.
I think for anyone who lives mainly in the city, to play for Liverpool Boys is a badge of honour.
It is.
It's a really big thing to do because there's so many schools, so many kids to choose from.
My lad played for the Wirral against them.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
Well, playing against the Wirral was David Thompson, so he played for Liverpool.
Yeah.
So me and him used to have some good battles.
Yeah.
So you knew straight away he was going to be a little bit of a player. He was a someone. For Bootle, I mean, I could name you the team, but it wouldn't mean too much to you. But for Liverpool, they had a player called Jamie Carragher, who won the Youth Cup with me at Liverpool, and has a lot of good amateur footballers, Liverpool schoolboys, you know, in the Sunday League. Because we still playing Sunday League then, in the Walton and Kirkdale, and the best team then was the Pacific. And basically their team was Liverpool Boys. And our team was Merton Villa, and we were Bootle Boys really. So they were a much bigger catchment area. But we drew the league with Liverpool.
Oh, wow.
They had a goalkeeper called Keith Stedman.
Okay.
And at our age, he was just known as, he was like the Allison or the Schmeichel.
He was an absolute bandit in goal.
Yeah, it was like, he played for the Pacific,
the
amateur team, or the Sunday League team, I should say. And that day, he was just unbeatable. Really? I was playing centre forward. We drew 0-0, and it didn't cost us the league, it just meant we had to share the league.
Yeah.
But then we played Liverpool at Goodison in the cup final, they beat us. I always think Liverpool Boys, they've almost got this sort of mentality, an aura.
Yeah.
And I think of that cup final, I always think as a kid, they beat us because they were Liverpool Boys, they weren't better than us. And it's this thing of playing for Liverpool Boys and the kit, and it's like this like...
Yeah, they've got a swagger?
A bit of a swagger. That I think, we're only from Bootle, we've only got 10 schools to pick from.
Yeah.
And I always felt that when we played in a big game against Liverpool Boys, we couldn't quite get over. I don't think we ever beat Liverpool Boys actually.
So my lad, he played a season for Wirral, and the games against Liverpool were absolute humdingers.
And the referees used to always give them decisions. I'm telling you now. Anyone at Liverpool Boys, honestly, they already had on referees as well at that age. Unbelievable.
Well, you know, and that goes right through to the top level, I think. You know, I think I've experienced a little bit of this at the weekend. The aura that Paris team had, you know.
It was a penalty.
Come on. You know. Anyway, we don't get involved in contemporary conversations here. But you did mention Merton Villa, right? Talk to me a little bit about Merton Villa, because we do like to talk about grassroots teams, and they were your team. So when did you start playing for them?
Well, when I was a kid, Merton Villa wasn't just a kids team, it was a men's team. So
it had a pathway to...
Yeah, so my dad managed the Merton Villa.
Right, okay.
The men's team, and I probably would have watched that team before I played for Merton Villa.
Yeah.
So my dad would have been taking me from the age of 3, 4, 5, 6 to amateur football all around Liverpool to watch the Merton. The Merton was a Sunday team.
Yeah.
The Brunny was a Saturday team. It was the same team, with different names. So everyone used to meet at the pub.
Yeah.
And you'd get up. I think they used to kick off at 2 or half 2, just before the 3 o'clocks. So this was before I was going to the Everton game as a kid.
Yeah.
So I'd be at Chaffers, Brookvale, Buckley Hill. You know, they're the football pitches by us in Bootle and Crosby. And go up to where Liverpool's training ground is now, Windy Harbour.
Yeah.
That was up there, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I'd be following that team in the back of the van.
Cold, so cold, Jamie.
Freezing. My dad left the referee there one time and he gave a bad decision. Yeah. Left him up there at Windy Harbour. But no, it was brilliant, and they were the players I looked up to really before I started following, Everton and watching, professional football.
Yeah.
So yeah, they had some great players, Terry McDonough, Billy Lock, in midfield, Billy McGee. Yeah, so I can name all the team. The Symes was playing, all
and
these people.
These the adults that you watched play.
Yeah, the adults who played. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? Like the impact that adult football, who were obviously playing at a really good standard, had on you as a child, and that you can still recall those names now. I wonder in your mind how much of an influence or impact they had on you when you were manifesting a career in the game. Do you know what I mean?
Well, my dad used to say, when I was that age, I used to say to him, can I play for the Merton when I'm older?
Amazing.
And it was basically, in my eyes, I didn't realise at the time, the Sunday league, as far as you go to work.
Yeah, of course.
Have a good bevy of a weekend and play a bit of footy on a Sunday morning. But I think your first people you look up to in football, you've always got that innocence as a kid.
Yeah.
That you think, oh, these are superstars. Or for me, if I ever bump into, the famous Everton team who won a couple of league titles, I still have that feeling of, they're the ones I looked up to.
Yeah.
As you get a bit older, and because of being in the game, you're a little bit more cynical. You know what goes on behind the scenes. You know what players
behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in some ways, you lose that little bit of mystique of what the game's really about, and lose a little bit of a love for it in some ways. But that love you have for players in the game as a kid, I always think your first heroes are always your heroes there. That'll never change.
5 years ago, there were 33,000 men's grassroots teams. 5 years later, there's only 30,000. And again, I don't know what the correlation is, but I think there's probably a direct correlation with the diminishing number of pubs that are around. Yeah. Right, the two things almost go hand in hand. What have you got an answer for that? I mean, how do we stymie that? How do we stop it? Or is it just something that can't be?
I don't know. I was trying to get involved in this a few years back, and more than that now. Do you remember the Pink Echo?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
And so there was a. I mean, the Pink Echo was just. Listen, I think everyone had a pink, didn't they, up and down the country.
Absolutely.
But in Liverpool, it felt so big.
It was massive in Liverpool.
Yeah.
I mean,
remember
for the Liverpool City region as well.
And I always remember, we'd finish a game for Liverpool. You play at home. The game finished. You'd get in the lounge at sort of 5:15, 5:30, or maybe 5 o'clock. And a guy'd come in and just give all Pink Echoes in the players' lounge, and they were just, the Pink Echo was just a massive part of my upbringing as a kid. Never not read it, and there was a massive part of it was about the amateur football, wasn't it? It was a big thing about getting your name in the paper, and sometimes my brothers would get their name in the paper scoring goals, and they played a lot of amateur football. My two brothers. I remember getting in touch with the guy who used to do the column. Was it called the Corinthian or the?
Yeah.
Was it?
I think it was something like that.
It was something called that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like that. I remember getting in touch with him about how we could help it or do something or pay for stuff.
Yeah.
And he just said it's a dying. It's not
print media. Yeah.
But what is actually probably growing, I would say, is probably kids football.
Definitely.
Yeah. So we're involved in that with the 23 Foundation, my charity, where, and we'll give it not give it a plug, but a little message to anybody who wants a kit.
Yeah.
at amateur football level or kids football up to under 16, we provide.
Yeah.
So we've been doing that for a long time now. So we do that for lots of football teams or kids. So if anyone wants to, there's kits there. We put the logo on the front, but we get them, you know, the kit, because you don't want to lose. That's probably more important than the men's football, because they're the young, they're the kids that could go on and have a career. The men's football have had their chance, hasn't happened.
Yeah.
But I think the point you make about the pubs is totally valid, because you had to meet somewhere, you had to go somewhere.
Sure.
It was always the pub.
Yeah.
So from when I was a kid, I spent a lot of my childhood in pubs.
Yeah.
Really, I can remember meeting. I mean, it's funny, we didn't, even though it was called the Merton Villa, and you think of the Merton pub,
Yeah.
we didn't meet at the Merton, the kids team did.
Right.
We used to meet at the Merton every Sunday morning at 9:30, and the kick-off was 10:30, wherever we were playing. But the men's team always met at a pub on just off Marsh Lane called the Chaucer.
Right.
So my dad grew up on Chaucer Street. Maybe that's why it was, because he was the manager.
Yeah.
So you always met at the Chaucer. You went to football and you went back to Chaucer after the game. So I'd be in there playing pool beforehand, go to the game, come back, play pool.
Yeah.
So you were always around men, drinking, talking football. I'd class myself as having a really good football brain. I think what's between my ears, in a footballing sense, was probably more important to me being a player than it was what my feet were.
Yeah, yeah.
Really, or my physicality,
Mm-hmm.
my intensity, my understanding of the game, my will to, you know, that sort of focus on football. That's why I played the level I did.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that comes from just being ingrained in football, being around men. You know, you're talking about travelling to amateur football games, but, you know, on a coach to Wembley, coming back, you're around men talking about football, their opinion, you're taking it all in. What does that mean? We think he's a good player because of this, or he's a good player.
You're able to filter it through, right?
Yeah, and as you get older, you think of it yourself, and you think of these things that, you know, people said. And, you know, I think just being around footballing people my whole life, I think when I went into the professional game, I've always been a big character, a strong character.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm probably a little bit like they're on TV now as well. I'll back myself in terms of, well, I think that.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I think that is because I've been talking to people since the age of 5 every day about football. I'm watching football and I'm thinking about football. So I'm confident enough and, you know, I've seen enough and done enough where I'm going to, that's what I believe. So I think that comes from, I know how supporters think, because I was a supporter. I went home and away.
Yeah. What do you think defines a footballing person? Is it that you have to have played the game, or is it something broader than that? I'm really interested in that.
No, I don't think you have to play the game.
No.
I just think somebody who's just ingrained in football.
Yeah.
You know, I know how I feel about things, and I know supporters. That's not just because I'm a player.
Yeah.
So if I didn't play for Liverpool, I'd still be ingrained in football.
Yes.
I would be.
Yeah.
It just, you know, I'd have played amateur football. I'd
Yeah.
have done all that.
Yeah.
I'd gone and watched my team home and away. I can't like that magazine there, Roy the Rovers.
Yeah.
So I still get sent magazines now that come in the post, and I've just got back from being away, and I've just opened one, the new 442.
Right.
So the 442 magazine, the World Soccer magazine, and when Saturday comes, they're the 3 magazines that I still get every month.
I love that.
And that feeling of like the magazines there to me, oh. So I used to have that as a kid with the Shoot magazine.
Yeah.
I used to get that every week.
A match weekly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Match for me.
Wasn't yeah.
It was
you were Match or Shoot, weren't you? You weren't both.
Match was too many posters. I wasn't into putting posters on my wall.
Yeah.
I wanted to read. I wanted information.
Yeah.
So Shoot was always my thing. Match had too many posters for me. But what I used to do, I never used to throw them out.
Yeah.
So I'd have stacks of these Shoot magazines from years.
Yeah.
And then once I'd read the new one that week, I'd then just pick one out.
Yeah.
Right at the middle of this thing, I'm picking out. It could be 2 years old, and I'd read it.
Yeah.
So when I think of my memory of football, I think it's probably reading old Shoot magazines that were 2 years out of date.
Yeah.
But just refreshing my mind of players, who they played for, what they liked, what they were like. So whenever a quiz comes up or anything like that.
Yeah. I remember, like, because I have very, very similar memories and of collecting Shoot magazines, and I used to love the the pen pictures, you know, like you'd have a picture of the player and then you'd have their likes and their dislikes. And I always remember like Ian Rush's
Milk.
Well, well, it was like, what was your post-match, or I don't know, was your pre-match or your post-match? It was his post-match meal, steak and chips and a pint of lager, you know, and
That could be anyone.
Well, I know, but it really stuck with me, you know. Ian Rush likes it's steak, you know. That's what.
If you do that, you'll be a footballer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what you'll do, you know. And then, he really likes Frank Sinatra, you know, or his favourite actors, Clint Eastwood. You know, there's almost no platform to have that kind of fun with players anymore. Do you know what I mean? Which is
too many people around them, isn't the agents and people in between. You know, so even those magazines now, I feel sorry for them because of social media.
Yeah,
everything's just instant. They're just doing. How can that be current? How can it be up to date? You know, when it's a monthly magazine. So, you know, a lot of the time they're looking back.
Yeah.
You know, old World Cup.
Do you keep them? Do you still keep them?
Oh, not now.
You don't keep them now.
That was when I was a kid.
But when you were so moving moving a little bit further. So when you were an established player, right? Were you still getting them then?
Yeah.
Right.
I'd take them on the. I'd read them on the bus.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And so you must have seen yourself in those magazines.
I wasn't someone who would be in magazines. I wasn't that type of player.
Jamie, you would have been in a 4-4-2. You would have definitely been in a 4-4-2. Right. So when you saw yourself in 4-4-2, how did that make you feel?
You know what I always wanted to do. I got in touch with 4-4-2 because I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
So 4-4-2 at the back of the magazine, a player always picks his best 11.
Right.
Even now, and even when I get the magazine, I think it's probably the first thing I go to.
Right.
But go right to the back. Who's doing it?
Yeah.
And so I was there. So when we do it on TV now, where we compare things, you get so many people on smart asses on social media. Oh, we shouldn't compare this one. Oh, the different ears. Fuck off.
Yeah.
That's what we all do. Sit in a pub and.
Yeah. And opinions like ourselves. Everybody's got one, right?
Exactly. But it's a bit. I think it's him, and you say why, and it's a debate, and you have it. I love that on TV.
Yeah.
And that's why I love picking teams, or he was better than him, or I'd have had him because of this, or. I think that's what people in the pub talk about.
Absolutely. And funnily enough, you talk about 4-4-2, right? I have a couple of really, really precious memories of 4-4-2 magazine.
I know what you're going to say.
Go on.
Ian Rush one with the Everton kit.
No, it's not that one actually. Although that's rather brilliant. No, one of the ones I've got a really, really interesting memory of, and kind of a precious memory, is when they did an all-time managers survey. Right, and inevitably Fergie was high up on the list, and Wenger was high up on the list, and things like that. But Johnny King was in the list from Tranmere Rovers, and that blew my mind because someone had really advocated for him.
Yeah.
Right, and I think they even contacted John Aldridge to. I think John Aldridge gave a kind of a pressy of him.
No manager, I don't think, in the history of the game sold better.
Great metaphors and things like that. That was Johnny King. The other one was, because my hero is Tony Adams, right? There was one where he, after Euro 96, and he got himself.
He went on a bender.
He went on a bender, but then he got dry, and there was a front cover called "Back from Hell." And it's a picture of Tony, and it was an interview with Tony, and I got that framed, right? And when he briefly managed Wycombe Wanderers, they were playing Chester, right? And we lived just outside Chester at the time, and my eldest boy, I said, listen, we can go and meet Tony Adams. So he came off the bus, and he signed the thing, and I said to him, Tony, just to be clear, because Yanis, my eldest boy, was in his Arsenal kit. He's only little at the time. I said, Tony, when we play in the Garden, just to be clear, he's always Thierry Henry and I'm always you. And he loved it. Anyway, that's the half-time whistle I can hear. So in the second half, we'll talk more about kind of what you're doing now, maybe leaning a little bit more to the community stuff that you've been doing. But for the moment, at half-time, Jamie Carragher, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This show exists because people believed in what it could be before it was anything. J.B. Priestley wrote about football turning strangers into companions, a community built in 90 minutes. And that's the whole idea behind what we're doing here. And OSS Security got that straight away. Not just the podcast, but the point of it, the belonging, the conversations, the thing that football does to people when it's at its best. They came on board as believers in the show, in the vision, in what this community can become. They say, got you covered. And that's exactly how it feels for the show and for everyone who's part of it. So, whatever you need, whether that's for your business or for your home, simply knowing someone's looking out for you, well, they've got you covered. We're proud to have them with us on this journey, and you can find a link to them in the show notes to find out more. We'd like to talk about the work that you do now and how that's kind of been influenced by your background and things like that, but we have missed out one thing, and I want to kind of draw a line under this. You've talked about it before, and I'm going to very, very quickly. What is your club? Are you a blue or a red?
A red.
You're definitely a red.
Yeah.
Right, definitely a red.
Yeah.
Right. How does your dad feel about that?
He's a red.
He's a red.
Listen, we were mad Evertonians. I never hide it.
Yeah.
I probably some Liverpool supporters think I talk about Everton too much.
Right.
You know, we obviously in the first half spoke about Everton, but it's part of my life. And I'm not ashamed about it, and I would never, because there's some of my greatest memories, and I said, as a kid, them people are your heroes. They're like, that's when you first fell in love with football, so mine was.
Who was your favourite player growing up then?
Probably Graham Sharp. I was a centre forward.
Yeah, yeah. That's what you modelled yourself on when you were playing up front?
Yeah, I suppose, yeah.
Yeah,
Graham Sharp.
Good player.
Great player, Graham Sharp for Everton.
Yeah.
But no, so what I'm saying is I don't shy away from, so, you know, Peter Reid's a huge Everton figure, and again, one of my heroes, but he was a Liverpool fan.
Yeah.
He very rarely probably talks about going on the cop as a Liverpool supporter, but I think listen, we know Everton fans probably despise Liverpool more than Liverpool despise Everton, so I think if you're an Everton man, to talk about Liverpool is just like, that is an absolute no-no. For me, if I upset a few Liverpool fans by speaking about Everton when I was a kid, I couldn't care less, because it's my life, and they're my great memories, and the people we went with, you know, families, friends and stories, still see them now.
Yeah.
Where I grew up was a lot of Evertonians.
But I think it's really interesting, like, that because of your media profile, that you're almost like an interesting case study about what it means to be a lifelong lover of football, and how that relates to when football becomes your profession. Because, as you say, like, you know, you take pelters online and what that about the relationship between Everton and Liverpool, and you're it's a well documented story that you grew up as an Everton fan, and then you were a highly successful professional playing in the red, and they're now your team. But I think for football fans everywhere, it's really hard for them, because they are so wedded to one church, and it is religious, you know, it is quasi-religious, that we almost, as football fans, need to understand. I mean, I mentioned Tranmere Rovers. Like, you know, I'm an Arsenal fan. I've been a lifelong Arsenal fan. A well-documented Arsenal fan. Now I'm doing this kind of thing, and I explain my relationship with this by my father, who was my late father, died when I was really, really young. He grew up in the 1930s. It's all of that sort of stuff. But I used to watch Tranmere Rovers home and away, right? Because they were my local team. So I have an affinity and a feeling for Tranmere Rovers. Did you always know you wanted to do punditry and like?
Yeah.
I mean, when did you know?
I used to, as I said, I used to read. I used to watch everything. Not because I wonder what they're going to say about me. Yeah. Really, it was just like I needed to know what was going on. I read the papers every day, even as a player. As a player, I'd get in quite early.
It's a dangerous thing to do.
I just loved information about the game.
Wow.
So I'd drop the kids off. I was probably one of the first players to have kids out of sort of our, you know.
Yeah, your group.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd sort of drop them at school about 8:30. I'd be at Melwood just after 9 o'clock. Yeah. Most people wouldn't be getting in for another half an hour, maybe. So I'd regularly just go into the press room and just read the papers in the morning. I need information. I need to know what's going on. I need to, you know, have my finger on the pulse. So I was always like that. And I used to see people, whether it was a journalist or someone on TV talking about our team, Liverpool, and not like thinking, you know, don't have a go at us. You know when people just talk shite? Yeah. You just haven't got a clue what they're talking about. Yeah. And I said, I do not have a clue what was going on at Liverpool, or where we need to do this or we need to do that. And I do think punditry has come on leaps and bounds. And mainly probably because of social media, a lot. Where you can't just turn up now.
No.
And just blag it.
No, you've got to do your research.
Yeah, and
I find that on the Anfield Wrap, right? So I mentioned offline that I do the Anfield Wrap, and they take the piss out of me because I do the Arsenal stuff on the Friday show, and the Friday show is basically the prep for the weekend, so like the preview of the weekend. Like the first time I did that, and I got that gig because I used to do Radio City Talk. Remember Radio City Talk? It was like the talk station. I mean, Radio City doesn't exist anymore. So I used to come in and do culture stuff for them. And then when Lizzie Doyle, who now works at the BBC, she was the producer. She was my producer on the show that I used to contribute to. She went to work at the Anfield Wrap. I said, I'll come on and do the Arsenal stuff. That week, I got a phone call, do you want to come on and do it, right? And I sat with I remember it quite vividly. I sat with Dan Morgan, Neil Atkinson, and it was a couple of other people in there. And I couldn't believe how well prepped they were, right? And I was like, these are just fans, right? I thought, I've got to up my game, do you know what I mean? You know, because even now, I don't think I've got, I couldn't do what they do.
I think people who haven't played the game, they feel like I've got to go above and beyond.
Okay.
Because I haven't got that to fall back on. So they're incredibly prepped. And I think the fall down with some ex-professionals is because they played the game, they feel they don't need to be prepped.
Right.
So at times I will look at, say, a team I'm doing. I don't watch them every week. I'd probably rather know the guy who hasn't played football,
right,
who is massively prepped on their team, than someone who played for their team.
Right.
I would listen to, and I think some of the football talk or chat or analysis on social media from fans who are not on TV, or maybe they've got their own podcasts with certain clubs, I actually think they're more informed than most pundits.
Right.
I would say, yeah.
Wow. No sooner I got a gig on the Anfield Wrap, I got a phone call from the BBC inviting me to sit on the red sofa, right, with a guy from the Blue Room, Matt from the Blue Room, to talk about Mikel Arteta's appointment. Because Ancelotti and Mikel Arteta were appointed the same day.
Was their game? Their first game?
Their first game was against each other. They weren't. Neither of them was sitting on the bench because I think it was Duncan Ferguson and Freddie Lungberg. Right, but they were both sitting in the stand. It was a Goodison. It was a terrible game. 0-0, and it was a 12:30 kickoff.
I remember watching that game, thinking these managers should be the other way around. Ancelotti should be at Arsenal, Arteta should be at Everton. But that wasn't to be the case.
Well, I think there was probably that was the story that the BBC were leading with. Like, can we get, like, you know, and of course it's in the media city. It's like who do we know that can speak about Arsenal quickly and we can get a moment's notice? So they got in touch with the Wrap. The Wrap got in touch with me. The next thing I know, that morning I'm on the sofa, and you talk about Twitter, right? All I got was pelters like, who the fuck is Jim Johnson? Right, what does he think he's like? Do you know what I mean? Like that. And I was like,
wait till you see mine.
But that's the thing. The minute you sort of put your head over the top, you are.
People have got to stop thinking social media is a barometer of people's opinions on the street. It's full of cranks.
Yeah,
lunatics.
I agree.
Who, after them, 99% of them haven't got a fucking clue about football and never done nothing in the game or fans or whatever.
My old mum used to say, my late dear departed mum, she used to say, son, a wise man doesn't reason with fools.
I need to learn that now and again. Now and again I go back. I go back at a few people, but yeah.
So like, again, going back, because you're immersed in football culture, right? Who were your, growing up, who were the pundits that you thought, that guy?
Well, there was only two pundits, really.
Go on.
Alan Hansen, wasn't it, Andy Gray?
Yeah.
So the punditry world, I think, blew up just as I was getting into it. I think BT then became like a big presence that trying to take on Sky. Sky really was Andy Gray, and then they'd probably just get a couple of guys in who played for the teams that were on TV,
of course,
basically. So there was no... But Andy Gray and Alan Hansen did analysis. You know, you probably remember Alan Hansen.
Well, so Andy Gray did the job that you do now on a Monday night,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So it was that type of thing and a bit more deeper analysis. And then it just felt like it exploded with people fighting for different pundits. You know, you always get the World Cup. You'll have the World Cup in the summer and it'll be ITV, BBC. That's always the case.
Yeah.
Every 4 years or every couple of years there's a tournament, and that's always a big thing. Who've they got?
Yeah,
Who's this one got?
Yeah.
That doesn't really happen so much with us on a weekly basis, but it's definitely something to look at in the tournament. But I only ever did one tournament, and that was the first bit of media I did.
Yeah.
And that was in 2012, the Euros. And the panel was actually, or the people, the 4 or 5 people with us on ITV was Roberto Martinez.
Wow.
Gareth Southgate, Roy Keane, me. So that was the 4 for the 3 seats, so we just mix it round. I think Gordon Strachan as well, but I knew then, oh, this is for me. I was starting to do my badges, so I was still a player.
Yeah.
So I was doing my badges then, I did that and I thought, oh no, this is what I want to do. I love talking about football, I'll give my opinion. I think I back myself to see things on a pitch before most other people in my position or understand what's going on.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that you make the point about the BBC and the ITV picking their teams, and I think there was something about that. And I actually think, again, if you go back a little bit further, there's a couple of things that resonate with me with what you've just said. There you are as an ex-Liverpool player now, one of the kind of leading pundits in world football media, which is amazing achievement in its own right. But you mentioned Alan Hansen, right? Back in the day, I'm thinking about that period, perhaps even just before. There was Jim Beglin, Barry Venison, Alan Hansen, Mark Lawrenson, all ex-Liverpool and all pundits, right? It's like, and subsequently, you know, I can add to that list like Keown, Dixon, and those, you know, are ex-Gunners. I wonder whether certain clubs breed a certain type of player, because you have to be more thoughtful, don't you? You have to be more articulate, right? Do you think there's something in that, or do you think it's just luck?
I think TV companies want people who've won.
Really?
Basically. I think a lot of that is that this is a guy who's played at the top level. He's won the biggest trophies. We want that insight. You know, now I think in some ways sometimes that can be a little bit unfair to certain pundits who maybe not won a trophy in their career. Yeah. But they're really good. You know, but I do feel now, I think in the past that was definitely the case with how can you question him? He's won everything. Yeah. I think now again with the scrutiny on pundits, with social media, I think that'll get you so far. Yeah. It's a little bit like a manager where we say, oh, look at the career he had. He'll get the respect of the dressing room because of his playing career. That'll only last so long with the players. You'll still have to deal with the goods, you know, in terms of as a coach or a manager. And I probably think that's the same with punditry. Yeah, we know you've had a great career, but what are you giving us? What insight are you giving us? It's definitely a huge help if someone's got an unbelievable CV. And one of the reasons they won so many trophies is because of the mentality, or they're giving little bits of, you know, things for the viewers at home to, oh, I've never heard of that before. Yeah.
I mean, in the 70s, if you go back earlier, you know, in the 70s, and you can see this stuff on YouTube now.
The ITV was at the first panel.
Yeah. I mean, and I can remember...
was it Malcolm Allison?
Malcolm Allison and Alan Mullery.
Yeah.
Right, going at each other, hammer and tongs, because I mean, Malcolm Allison was kind of the proto-pundit, wasn't he? Because you knew that if you booked Big Mal, you were going to get controversy, right? And in the same way that Cloughie would be booked. I mean, like, you know, I yield to no one in my love of Brian Clough, because he was just so effervescent and so, you know, larger than life. And the things he said were controversial, right? And I don't think he chose to say those things deliberately. They were the things that he felt, and he was going to bloody well say them, whether he liked it or not.
Massive characters.
Absolutely. And then, you know, if you think about, like, when... And you go back to that kind of 70s football culture, that, for those people who are sort of listening to this now, who don't know, I urge them to go and look at this piece of footage between Malcolm Allison and Alan Mullery, where basically...
he doesn't think he's good enough to play in the England team.
Doesn't think he's good enough. He says
so Alan Mullery's still a player, isn't
absolutely, yeah. And he says he's too slow. And they go into the granular of statistics, of appearances, and how many goals they've scored, and those sort of things. And they really absolutely go at it. Similarly, there's that.
Fluff and Revy.
Well, I was about to say, you took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Similarly, there was a whole half-hour TV show dedicated to Don Revy going head-to-head with Brian Clough after Brian Clough was sacked by Leeds.
Yeah.
And he was the England manager.
Yeah.
It's like, why do you care about this?
And we think we're setting, new boundaries with TV now. You go back to that. I mean, brilliant.
Well, this sort of thing. And we talk about like non-players who become pundits. I remember seeing, again, another really interesting piece after an Arsenal Champions League game when typically they were knocked out again in the quarterfinals or the last 16 under Wenger. And it was an Irish TV spot. And I think Graham Souness is sitting in on it. But the
Eamon Dunphy.
Eamon Dunphy and Liam Brady, right? And Eamon Dunphy actually did play the game because he was a sort of I think he played for Millwall, didn't he? But he made his name as an Irish sports journalist and writer. I remember reading when I mentioned going back to bands. U2 are one of my favourite bands, and I remember reading Eamon Dunphy's book on U2, and then realising this is in 1987 that Eamon Dunphy had this whole other
he's a legend in that. Well, anyway, isn't he?
Well, that's what I mean. But he wasn't having it, right? And there's one of my great heroes, Liam Brady, going hammer and tongs with Eamon Dunphy because Liam basically, because he worked for Arsenal at the time, he was the head of the academy, obviously close to Arsene Wenger as probably a friend and colleague, feeling like he's got to stand up for him. And I think Graham Souness ended up sort of almost refereeing that. I mean, the very idea that Graham Souness would find himself in the middle of that is like, do you find that? I mean, you can't finesse that on TV, can you? It either happens or it doesn't happen. Is it encouraged, that kind of controversy, or is it more sedate?
No, I don't think it's encouraged. But I don't. When the places I work, I'm allowed to be myself.
Yeah.
Now I think different shows require different things. The big thing is, and the reason me and Gary Neville would go at each other, or me and Roy Keane in the past have gone at each other, you've got to make sure the person you're going at is not sensitive.
Right.
And are okay to be challenged.
Yeah.
And I can assure you, 99 times out of 100, when that camera stops rolling, we're probably laughing.
Yeah.
But
of course, yeah.
You got me there, or I was on the back foot there, or whatever it may be. And I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I love strong opinions, not being scared to jump back and put someone on the. I'm waiting for someone to say something that I think, I've got them there.
Yeah.
And I just love that opportunity to go bump.
Yeah.
And I know I can put them on the back foot as soon as I said it. And I like that on TV. And that for me, what you're talking about is at the end of a Super Sunday.
Yeah.
That's that type of punditry there, where it's a big game. You're at Anfield, Liverpool v Man United, or what a huge game that's had big ramifications on someone's job, or a team, or a player, or the title. And we're going for it. We've got half an hour at the end.
You've got long content. You've got long-form content to be able to actually go at it, which they couldn't do in those old days.
Yeah.
Right. If you think about it, and going back to the Clough v Revy thing, that would have been a half-hour segment at the end of a Super Sunday.
Yeah.
Right. And in many ways, it's quite pioneering that when you think about it, because how long did it take for the media companies to catch up with that notion that people had an appetite for? I mean, in many ways, you could argue that that's where the Premier League has done its job, right? Because I think the Premier League has enabled us to be willing to accept long-form content. You couldn't do it on terrestrial TV.
But what's happening now is, and I think one of the reasons why podcasts are so successful, or YouTube channels now, there are still ad breaks on TV.
Right.
And there's still breaks, and there's still, if there's four of us sitting here talking about me and you are going at it, the host is mindful that there's two other people sitting there.
Yes.
I've got to bring them in. I've got to make them feel part. So it's not just like So when you go on YouTube now, or there's no breaks, you can say what you want. There's no time limit.
Yeah.
So I think podcasts and YouTube now, not even with players, even with the supporters now, there is no time frame. You can say exactly what you say. Sometimes you're on TV and you're a bit like, I never got to that. I never got to that. We had to get to a break, and it's a bit. No, we've got a manager's interview there. We've got to speak to Mikel Arteta.
Yeah.
And we can't go back to Liverpool after Arteta, so we're going to Arsenal.
Yeah.
You know. So there is that little bit of on TV, and that's just the nature of it. But I think that's why people enjoy being on podcasts, or I'm on here. No one can stop me saying what I want. TV are not stopping you, but there are ad breaks. We've got to get to Arsenal. We've got to get to this team. We've got to fit this in the whole. In the structure. In the show. Yeah.
And it's interesting because I think about some of the stuff you're doing, for instance, on the overlap, or the overlap as a platform is interesting because you're looking for clippable bits within that so that they can go out as reels, because people still want that kind of 5 second, 10 second.
Okay, I'll give you an example, and this happened 2 days ago. I did the fan debate.
I saw it.
So we're talking about Slot going, we're talking about Iraola going. Now, I know, even though I work for these companies, I work for Sky, I work for the Overlap, I work for CBS, I know they're going to put content out that is going to get people laughing, angry, whatever it is, because of more people clicks. That's the name of the game. I get that, and I understand that's the world that we live in, and I accept that. But sometimes a lot of what you say is taken out of context, but that ship's well sailed. There's nothing you can do about it. But the other day, I spoke to the lads. As soon as I saw it on my phone, there was something about me and Gareth Roberts were speaking about the Liverpool situation. And what I'd said was taken completely out of context. Now, because Liverpool had lost the manager and they were getting a new manager, and that's what we were talking about, and we talking about maybe why Alonso hadn't come in, I wasn't happy with it. I was like, now, if it was Arsenal or someone else, I wouldn't touch it.
Yeah.
But because it was Liverpool and it's such an important subject, because the manager's changing, I said, take it down.
Yeah.
I said, I want you to put the full 15-minute clip out of us talking Liverpool. Now, I don't care if people don't agree with it.
Yeah.
But that's my thoughts. This is too important a subject for it to be a 1-minute clip that everyone's clipping and going, oh, fuck off, whatever. It's like, and because it was.
Well, they hang you out to dry, don't they?
No, but that's fine. But it's fine. But it was taken. I said, you started the clip there.
Yeah.
It doesn't give any context. What we were actually talking about was sporting directors.
Yeah.
But it took the bit about, because we were talking about Chelsea and Liverpool, sporting directors, and the fact that if Liverpool didn't want Alonso because they thought he might be too big of a figure, or the fans might have a bigger connection, he might get too powerful. That's what we were talking about. But they took the context wasn't there, so people didn't know we were talking about that.
Yeah.
So it was almost like, if they didn't get Alonso in because of that, well, people at home didn't know what because of that was. It just looked like I was saying, Alonso, basically having to go at Liverpool for Alonso.
Yeah.
But because it was Liverpool, I put my foot down on that one.
Yeah.
But in terms of like stuff that goes out now, I got up on me, I don't know what they clipped up.
Yeah.
Sky or CBS
and you
or what.
can't be too precious about it, can you?
But sometimes you look at it and you think, I didn't even say that.
Yeah.
It's a constant battle, because even like a newspaper column, they're looking for a headline that's going to entice people in to read the article, really. And you're in that game, you're in that world, so I get it. So you can't really complain about it too much, really. It's just sometimes when it goes too far, you're thinking, now, whoa, I didn't say that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I understand little bits of trying to get people engaged in, what do you call it, clickbait or whatever. You have said it, but it's just as long as it has that context around it. But I'm probably a little bit more sensitive around Liverpool stuff.
Yeah.
Because I probably care about what Liverpool fans think more than any other supporters, obviously, because they're my supporters.
Yeah. Part of your tribe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now, we ask everybody on the pod to bring an artefact in with them. And I can see this rather impressive artefact here. Do you mind if I pick it up?
Yeah.
Right. So, it weighs an absolute ton. I mean, you could do your workout with this, Jamie. And for the people who are driving in the car or not watching this on video, this is a beautifully sculpted bronze handshake sculpture, and with the insignia underneath. Do you mind if I read this out?
Yeah.
It says One Club Man Award, Athletic Club to Jamie Carragher, Bilbao 2025. And it's got Atletico Club Bilbao's crest on one end and the Liverpool crest on the other. Tell me about this.
It was just an award I was given a year ago, really, about athletic club. It's not did you get ready?
Oh, it's athletic club, not Atletico club.
No,
Right.
or Bilbao. They don't like the word Bilbao.
They don't?
No, actually. So I don't know.
Right.
They told me why, but I forgot. But
Right,
it's
okay, yeah.
athletic club.
Right, so they like to be known as athletic club.
Club.
Is this a Basque thing?
Yeah. I don't know. You know what? I don't know exactly, but they don't like the. They were a bit like when they call Notts Forest. It's Nottingham Forest. They get really upset with that, don't they? Notts Forest.
Yeah.
Athletic club. So it's famous for, you know, all the players have to come from the Basque region or have a link to the Basque region.
Yeah.
And they give their awards out to one club men.
Amazing.
Yeah. Would you believe, I'm going to really hate you a little bit, I think Tony Adams turned it down, or has not.
Really?
No, he hasn't turned it down. He's been offered it and he hasn't taken it as of yet. As of yet. I don't know exactly the reason why, but that was mentioned when I was over.
When we get Tony on,
we'll have it
out.
Get him over next. They want him over there.
Yeah.
So it was amazing to go over there. They made a fuss of me. 2 or 3 days. We went to a game. We had lovely seats. Me and my wife went over. A couple of friends. We had a couple of really good nights in Bilbao. And it's something like you think, you know. Well, Liverpool have that motto, don't we? That I wouldn't say I love. Mm-hmm. It means more, doesn't it? Which I think it's
this means more.
A bit of nonsense.
We are Liverpool. This means more.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a great lover of that. But what I would say is, when I went there and I thought, you know what? There is something about this club that it does mean more than it's not about.
It's not about football.
It's what we've got is special.
Yeah.
And it is more important than football, because if it wasn't, they're going to be buying whoever they wanted to buy.
Of course.
So it is more than a game or whatever you want to say. And I thought that is something that, like, they're never going to take on Barcelona or Real Madrid, but they were in the Champions League last year.
Yeah.
You know, so they are a team who can
do stuff.
Do well. You go back to, I think Liverpool played them in 83, 84 on the run to the European Cup, winning 84.
Yeah.
So they won I think they won the title 2 years running.
Wow.
In the early 80s, yeah.
Wow.
So that was the last time. But as I said, they were in the Champions League a couple of, or last season. So they compete.
Yeah,
and you think about doing that.
That's incredible.
With players just from the Basque region.
With proper limited resources.
Yeah.
You know, geographically constrained.
Yeah. But this is where all the best managers are coming from now, isn't it?
Well, yeah. Absolutely, because
Arsenal, Liverpool's manager.
That's what I mean. Yeah,
new manager.
Yeah.
Depends when this goes out.
Well, absolutely. But I mean, but that is really.
So I was awarded that. I've got a jersey there that was signed by the players. Really, and would you believe, I was in Ibiza last week.
Right.
And I was in a club called Leo's, or like a cabaret show.
Yeah.
And the full squad came in.
Did they really?
Yeah. So they were in there on a couple of tables, so I shook hands with a couple who remembered me going there, because I met the team before the game in the morning, and then they obviously went to the game in the evening. So they were all in Leo's enjoying themselves, as they should at the end of the season.
Yeah.
But they were in.
But I think this sort of stuff, in the phrase, using the phraseology of "this means more," this is the sort of stuff that means more, because to be a one club man is so rare in the game. Even in the Premier League era, it's a rare thing, you know, and it's easy to see how through the conversation that we've had from Merton Villa through to the work that you do now, that you embody that. The fact that you work in football media now in the way that you do is directly linked to those shoot magazines. It's directly linked to those conversations in the pub. And I actually think, to anybody who's going to listen to this, they're going to recognise that actually, and this is certainly something that I've taken, not just from this conversation, but from attending the parade, the North London parade last weekend, that actually it's not about the guys on the pitch. It's not about the guys in the stadium, because that in itself is an honour these days, because the demands to get on tickets are so huge. It's the broader culture, and that's kind of what Football for Breakfast is really about. Now we have that's the full time whistle. I've just
Good
heard.
extra time.
Right. But we have a penalty shootout.
Oh, good.
Right. Okay. So these are the lightning questions.
You're not
right.
going to hit it over the bar, are you?
Well, I decide whether they go over the bar. That's for another day. Home or away?
Oh, is this like question of
Yeah.
sport?
Home or away? You just did. Are you a home or away? One word answer. Home or away?
Oh, I think away.
Away.
I think away supporters are I think that's what makes English football special, the away support and the people and the travel. I'm fascinated by away supporters.
Yeah.
The money
dedication.
the dedication, the travel, the money it costs. It's the same. Listen, I know the Liverpool fans who go home and away, but the lads who go away, Mono and all this crowd, Tony, all these people.
I mean, I watched Arsenal lift the title in Little Sardinia on the Blackstock Road. Right, so it was just like it was like a party. Do you know what I mean? We were just in there, just watching it. Yeah. Like Marcello, the owner of Little Sardinia on the Blackstock Road. But then I was looking at the Arsenal fans who'd obviously been travelling home and away, and obviously they lifted the trophy at Selhurst Park. And I thought that in itself is a real treat for those guys, because they're the ones, they're the travel club guys. But then my mind quickly went back to a Tranmere Rovers game I attended at Roker Park when there was about 400 of us, on the open terraces, freezing to death. Yeah. And I'm thinking, it's those guys, isn't it?
Well, that's why I went back before when I said about I was happy Villa won their European trophy, and Palace have won a few lately actually, or West Ham a few years ago. Yeah. I don't like clubs going 20, 30 years. I think that's probably the bad thing of like the Champions League and the Premier League and the biggest clubs having more money. Yeah. You said going back to the 70s before, but in the 70s I think there was like a different title winner almost every year. Yeah. And I do think, I don't like that clubs go, because of the fans, because of like fans who are paying that money going home and away every week. You need that moment when you win a trophy for your club. Is like, it's one of the best days of your life, and every fan should experience that. They should have that moment.
It's why I think that international football is so important, because international football isn't really for Premier League fans. It's for fans outside the Premier League, because they get to support the elite players, in big tournaments and get to experience it. And when you see the Cross of St George with Peterborough United on it or whatever, you just think to you, yes, mate, that's for you. And you're as entitled to be there as anybody. Watching or playing?
Playing.
Okay. This is a really interesting one. Best captain?
Steven Gerrard. Who else could it have been?
I don't know. I'm kind of interested, but I expected you to say that. We've had some Reds on here. Some said Virgil van Dijk. No one said Jordan Henderson yet, interestingly.
Jordan's a really good captain.
Yeah, a really good captain.
I mean, what is a good captain? I mean, listen, is it a great player? Is it a great leader? It's...
When we start a
league... I think captains can, drag their team somewhere, or they make players around them better. So I think Stephen, dragged us as a team to sort of heights and levels that maybe people did. People don't associate, or we won in Istanbul, but people don't see that team as like a Champions League winning team. Mm-hmm. But Steven Gerrard, not single-handedly, but he dragged a group of players to probably something that maybe people didn't think they could achieve.
Fair enough. I mean, interestingly, right, and this might resonate with you as well. I don't think we've done a leaderboard yet of best captains, but off the top of my head, I think the vicarious leader of the best captain leaderboard is actually Kevin Ratcliffe.
Or for the people you've interviewed?
Yeah, for the people we've interviewed, right, which is kind of interesting. We have had a few Blues on, to be fair, right, but the Blues have unanimously all said the same guy. You know
what's interesting about that team, the Everton teams, I know that like the back of my hand, but even though Kevin Ratcliffe was the captain, I always class Peter Reid as the leader of that team.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like with this team at the moment, this Arsenal team, everybody, Odegaard's the captain, but Rice is the real captain, right? VAR or nah?
Probably nah now. After we've had it for a few years, I was a big advocate of it coming in, to be honest, but now it is in. I'm like, I don't feel like we've gained that much. I think goal line technology is brilliant and everybody loves it. But now I think the offside one. I'm not talking about this. I think if it was me now, you've got goal line technology. I think it's been great for the game. Yeah. I actually think when someone's 5 yards offside and they score a goal, it shouldn't count, or someone gets a goal taken off them because they were well onside.
Yeah.
It feels a bit unjust. I think if you could do it for offsides, but you could build in, I think we do have this in the Premier League, but you can almost build in a grey area. I know it sounds stupid.
Yeah.
But I think it's like a 5 centimetre, so we're not getting like a toenail.
Yeah.
We're not getting that. I think, you know, something that's sort of black and white, goal line technology and probably offside, I'd probably keep it at that.
Do you remember the iterations of like things like goal line technology? Do you remember as little as 10 years ago, they had those 2 helmets on either side of the goal in the Champions League? Like, you know, whatever happened to those guys?
What are they doing now?
Do you know what I mean? What did they even do?
Them,
do you remember them?
Yeah.
I don't. To this day, I still don't know what they did. Do you know what I mean? Anyway,
locking themselves to goalposts at Goodison Park.
That's right. Very funny. Final one. Final of the quick fires. International friendlies or pre-season friendlies?
Pre-season friendlies.
Okay, and one result, and it doesn't have to be football, that you've never got over.
Champions League final 2007.
I don't know there's many people who can say that they played in a Champions League final, let alone the 2 or 3 that you played in, which is incredible. And we don't let anybody leave empty-handed, so there's something up there for you. So if you wouldn't mind taking that and reading it out for us.
Football for breakfast, good companion, 25-26.
Jamie Carragher, I just want to say thank you so much for being a good companion and joining me.
Brilliant, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Jamie Carragher, a man who never stopped being a fan, whatever else he became. Football for Breakfast is a production by The Good Companions, presented by OSS Security. They've got you covered at ossecurity.com.